Yes, welcome in. Badgers in the midst of winter workouts, getting ready for spring ball, which is still about a month away. Looking forward to that. Going to see all these new faces and all the roster, the roster that's going to have to be glued to our hands for the first couple of weeks of spring ball and probably into fall camp because that's just the way things go. But we got plenty to get to because another assistant coach has left. This one, Jordan Reid, hardly knew you, but we'll see another wide receivers coach. I believe is this number 4? Let's be the fourth wide receiver coach for Luke Fickell. Now, again, the wide receiver coach, his second wide receiver coach became the quarterback's coach. So it's not like he lost 3 of them, but he's looking for a different wide receivers coach for a 4th season. Impressive.
Yeah, I've always said assistant coaches never stay assistant coaches in the same spot for long. It takes a very specific individual. I think of Mike Hankwitz at Northwestern, who was coordinator there, someone who wants to be at a place. But if you're young, up and coming, and you don't have ties to a program, you're probably not going to be here very long. And yeah, obviously the wide receiver room is going to have to regroup. And what was your favorite moment of the Jordan Reid era, if I can ask?
Well, I did ask you about yours, and you said the introductory press conference because that was about the only time we talked to him. I don't have one, if I'm being completely honest. And that's probably the problem here is you come and go and they come and go so quickly that it just doesn't even matter. He is ending up in Atlanta as an assistant to a position coach. But if and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but if I'm a assistant coach in college, I'm looking for a way to the pros. If that's what you like, if you want to be an assistant coach for life, if that's what you want to do, if you don't want to be a head coach, if you just want to, be in that position coach role. And I don't know how many guys want to do that. I would assume probably not too many, but I would get out of college right now. I wouldn't even deal with this. I'd come back when college was a little bit more settled and a little bit less wild, wild west. And there's a lot of money to be made in college these days, but there's even more money to be made in the NFL, especially if you end up being a position coach. And, we can talk about how hard it is to be an NFL coach and the time commitment. Time commitment's even more, I think, in college for an assistant coach, just because there's a lot more that goes into it. You're not just on the field work; it's recruiting and all that good stuff. So, yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit. We've also talked about this last week. Thought, well, what can we do? As things are not necessarily going on right now, not a ton happening. So we'll do a little position battles and look through that as well. And then your Danitz story, the best transfer portal story from 2026. Is that accurate?
Well, that was a quote from his former coach at Hope College. But I think when you consider everything that happened to him, it's got to be up there in terms of the unlikelihood of this development when somebody thinks their career is over, they've played at Division III, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity to go play in the Big Ten. But we'll get into that as well. So it's fascinating, and it's fun to see these kinds of stories in modern college football because they don't happen a ton. So when they do, you kind of gravitate toward it.
Absolutely. And then we also have promised probably doing this for a year, maybe more. We're going to do some of our travel stories. We have Jesse's been covering this team since 2011. I've been there since 2013. So we have some travel that has not gone right. And Jesse's, I guess, taste in hotels has grown over the time as well, as mine, and certain hotels you don't book. But we'll have fun with that. Some of our travel stories are actually intertwined with each other's, so that works as well. But let's dive into the Jordan Reid thing a little bit more. He is on his way to Atlanta to be assistant coach. This will be the 4th wide receivers coach. Doesn't mean anything that it's going to be a 4th wide receivers coach, because I think we talk a lot about the offensive line where you've had just a rotating list of guys, right? You went from Joe Rudolph to Bob Bostad to Jack Bicknell to then obviously last one.
AJ Blazek and Eric Mateos.
AJ Blazek and then Eric
Mateos. Help each other out. I was a little slow on the draw there.
Yeah, the Blazek one was the one I was trying to think of. But I mean, and that's just since 2021, right? So there's been a ton of turnover in that room. Doesn't matter as much at wide receiver, where perhaps the techniques are the techniques.
Well, to me, it matters in the sense of having the same voice in the room, the same message, and the relationships that you build. On the other hand, let's be real about where we're at in college football. That room has 3 returning scholarship players: Eugene Hilton Jr., Chris Brooks Jr., Tyrell Henry, and the rest of those dudes are completely new. And I can't imagine what kind of relationship they formed with Jordan Reid in the month and a half that it's been since they entered the portal. So I think it probably matters a little less than it used to matter when you had dudes who were recruited as juniors in high school, had those relationships. And as much as you hear commit to the school, not the coach, these guys are forming the relationships and committing because of the coach usually in that position room. So I think it's probably easier to move on if you're a wide receiver in that room. It's not ideal, but this is where we're at, I think, in general. And as I said at the outset, assistants don't stay assistants for very long, particularly when there are no ties to a program. And I think we should also acknowledge Jordan Reid originally, right, from Atlanta or that area.
From Georgia. Yeah, it's from Georgia.
From Georgia. So, for him, it makes a lot of sense. You get to be closer to what you know or family, and you have the NFL opportunity. And I'm totally with you, Zach. Like, the hours are going to be significant no matter what, but now you don't have to deal with recruiting, NIL. He had a great ad in recruiting with Jordan Petit, and then the team isn't good, and he ends up at Oklahoma. So all that time and effort you put into somebody goes for naught. And you are at the mercy of whatever happens to the head coach in terms of staff changes. And I think it's just as frequent in college now as it is in the pros. Very rarely do you see an NFL coach's tenure go for a decade plus. Those are the truly special coaches who probably end up being considered for the Hall of Fame, because it just doesn't happen. But I think that you're seeing more and more of that at the college level too. But you're right. This is the 4th wide receiver coach that they've had. It started with Mike Brown, who came over from Cincinnati and then left. And they had Kenny Guyton, moved him to the quarterback's coaching room. They brought in Jordan Reid from Western Michigan, and now you're going to need a 4th. It matters a little, but I just don't think it matters. I don't want to denigrate Jordan Reid and his positivity and potential impact, but just realistically, it's a revolving door, and they will find somebody who is a qualified, capable wide receivers coach. I also think if you don't have a quarterback who can throw you the ball last season, I'm not sure what any wide receiver coach could have done with that room.
Right. Probably irrelevant with the quarterback issues that Wisconsin had last year. I will say, and I mean, you go back and look at the film or the tape, and all the guys that I think, and especially a guy like Jaden Ballard, running open quite a bit. And the inability to get them the ball is certainly something that you wish would have been different for those guys, because and a guy like Vinny Anthony, who despite barely getting anywhere close to production he had the year before with a backup quarterback, still ends up going to the Senior Bowl, because that's just how good he is. And to unfortunately not have the quarterback to get him the ball, that sucks. So hopefully whoever the wide receivers coach ends up being his guys have a quarterback that's going to get them the ball and let them work. Because I think there's certainly some talent in that room, but it's just a ton of new talent and guys that haven't been here before, so probably don't have an amazing relationship with Jordan Reid in terms of history with him. And so maybe it's not as big of a deal. And certainly, maybe the true freshmen who built relationships with him during recruiting matter, like Zion Legree or a Thibodeau, but the other ones probably not so much. So that's part of that. The other aspect of this for him is what happens next year. Do you take the guaranteed position right now and potentially with a new coach who's going to have some leeway in the NFL instead of sticking with Luke Fickell, who does not have a lot of leeway this year, and this could be it? I think it makes sense. I don't think that's the reason Jordan Reid's doing it, but it has to be at least somewhere in his mind that there is more possibility for further employment with a new coaching staff in Atlanta than with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a consideration. How much runway do you have at any place? And to a degree, I think if you're a coach, I don't want to say you can't think about that because you have to live in the moment and put your best foot forward, but you have to be realistic about a situation. And again, it's not like we've had an opportunity to speak to Jordan Reid about the decision-making process and what went into it. But as we're speculating, I think that's a fair consideration, that if it doesn't go well, you're looking for a job next year. And if you've kind of got the bird in hand where you've got this opportunity to go to the NFL, and maybe that was your dream, and fairly meteoric rise, right? Just 2 years ago, he's at Western Michigan. He's in the MAC. And I understand it's an assistant quarterback coaching position. He's not coming in to be the quarterback's coach, but that's how you get your foot in the door. And if things go well, that can lead to the next coaching opportunity. So look, wish all these guys well. There's always going to be somebody else. That's kind of how I think about it now. When I first started covering the team in 2011, there was a ton of turnover then. And the reasons were different then, perhaps. Brett Bielema was lamenting the fact that at the time he didn't feel he could pay the assistant coaches what he felt they were worth. And you can debate whether that was BS or not, but like, there's always been consistent coaching turnover. It just feels like now it's supercharged.
So you saw me rolling my eyes about that then, right?
I sure did.
Okay, good. Just in case you're listening to this, you should go watch our YouTube, because I was rolling my eyes at that. Because the Brett Bielema thing is, I hated that part of it, and I think it was BS. Because if you go back and look at it, and I did, you go back and look at it, and all the coaches that left, all but one got a promotion. When they left, they got a promotion. Did more money come with that promotion? Yes, but it was almost always a promotion, except for like one guy. I think it might have been Delvon Alexander. I think he ended up going to Arizona State, still being the wide receivers coach, right?
Yes.
And yeah, other than that, no one was leaving just simply because he couldn't pay them enough. They were getting promotions to better jobs and to better schools, and that's just what it is. But now it's different.
Yeah.
I think, look, Wisconsin certainly has upped their commitment to the coaching staff, the head coach at the top of it, and they need certainly even more staff pay, I think, is something that you would point to. And I think that they have increased investment there, but Jordan Reid's not leaving because of money.
Well, I'd also say, I don't know what an assistant quarterback coaching position pays in the NFL. I believe he made $300,000 as the receivers coach last year at Wisconsin. I don't know what the pay is. That's probably a consideration as well. So, yeah.
I mean, the top head coaches in the NFL are making like $20 million.
There's a lot of money to be had in coaching in general if you get to the highest levels.
Yes. Now, again, we don't know all the exact numbers because they don't have to release them, but there's a lot of money in the NFL, obviously, for obvious reasons. So Luke Fickell has a decision to make here, and a talking point that we have hit on every single time a job has come open, because he is the one that said in 2023, when his one regret when he built his staff was not having a Wisconsin guy on it. His tight end coach then leaves, and he hires Nate Letton, who is also not a Wisconsin guy. So every other opportunity that has popped up, is this the time? Is this the time he's going to add a former Wisconsin guy? And every time it has been, no, he is not going to add a former Wisconsin guy. Is this the time that he adds a former Wisconsin guy?
No, and honestly, I think at this point, I don't even want to hold him to whatever that comment was. I think he was talking about in the moment, and the Jim Leonard situation happened. Why would Jim stay? You brought your defensive coordinator over from Cincinnati and Mike Tressel, so he's going to have a lesser role after being passed over for the head coaching job. The Bobby April thing, you would have loved to have had him. Why would he stay? Like, you probably had an opportunity. And yeah, in that moment, you could have said, well, you just lost Mickey Turner, and Mickey Turner's going to Illinois State, and maybe there's somebody else. At this point, I don't envision it happening. I sent you that text and I joked, like, just naming random wide receiver who played at Wisconsin from the past. I think that is important, but so is either a relationship that you have or word of mouth from somebody who is an up-and-comer. And I would be surprised because we haven't seen it yet. And of all positions, it's going to be at wide receiver coach.
Do you know who coaches a former Badger player that coaches wide receivers right now?
I'm sure there are. Go ahead. Who do you got?
Mickey Turner.
Does he really?
Where at? Illinois State.
Oh, okay. Well,
yep. Come
on down.
All right. I believe that's still accurate.
We should probably check on that.
No, he's still there. No, he's still there. I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes you get the AI like messing stuff up. So
Yeah.
I wanted to go check and make sure. And his Twitter page still has him as the wide receivers coach at Illinois State. But I think that, to me, that is not just simply the only job that you would be counting on him for. It would be also his connections here within the state and his connections to alumni and his connections to everything, knowing what Wisconsin wants to be or was previous to this particular coaching staff. And right now you have Casey Robach on staff, who plays a significant role in that. Isaiah Green May is a personnel assistant.
They're hiring for that alumni relations coordinator, which obviously you can say, well, not why did it take so long, but that's something that we've certainly heard people across the state lament to a degree. And again, I know we talked about this recently. I think that this staff has taken some time to build those relationships, and 2027 recruiting class specifically is perhaps showing that they're making inroads. But yeah, I mean, what Wisconsin was for so long is not what it is right now. And so maybe you want to bring that bridge back. But I don't know. I at this point, I'm kind of like, just get the best candidate at this stage of the game. It's the middle of February. Find somebody who's going to bring positivity, who's got some experience, who can lift this wide receiver group and make them perform if Colton Joseph is healthy. So it's been a fun talking point. I just don't know how much it matters right now for where Wisconsin is at.
I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. But it could be another goodwill moment.
Yeah. If there's a qualified candidate and it lines up. And I imagine
that there's been I would say probably a lack of, when it comes to the history of the program. And just leave it at that. Anything else on Jordan Reid?
No, that's the longest we've spent talking about Jordan Reid at any point during his tenure. So bid you adieu. See who's coming next.
Yes. All right. Let's jump into this.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about let's jump into the position battles for those listening. We talked a little bit about this last week with Carter Smith and Deuce Adams and who was going to win that backup job. Can you refresh my memory which way you went?
I think I don't know. I guess I'll go Carter Smith. Yes.
I think Carter Smith obviously needs to take a significant jump.
Yeah.
In where he is throwing the ball wise. I think there's no doubt about that. We talked to Brady last week or 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned him and just the way that he looks, how different he looks. He looks like a linebacker. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't think it's I shouldn't say, I don't know if it's a great thing. I don't know what it means for his ability to throw the ball. But I would imagine it means that he's going to be able to be even a better runner than he was this past year.
Yeah, I think I told you that because I've seen some photos of these dudes after the workouts this offseason, and he's just absolutely stacked, and you would not think that he looks like a quarterback. But obviously that's the big component here is how can you progress as a passer? I don't know. I don't even think I'm ready to go out on a limb and say that it's going to be Carter Smith because, to me, it's a complete toss-up. Deuce Adams has thrown 21 career passes. He started one game against SMU. Carter started 3 games when he's thrown into a role because they don't feel like they've got anybody else. I think both those guys, you would assume, will split reps as the staff tries to figure out what that number 2 role looks like. And maybe you get a sprinkling of Ryan Hopkins just to see what he could do. But those guys clearly, with their 1 year of college football or 2 years of college football, are on a higher plane starting out than Hopkins. So, yeah, that to me is among the more fascinating position battles that we're going to see this spring.
I would agree. I think I lean towards Adams, but
could be right.
But probably not by much. Probably not by much at this point. The other thing in the backfield, I don't even know if it's a battle. I feel like Abu Sama is going to be the main ball carrier, and Darian Dupree is going to be the 2. Would you agree with that? I mean, I guess Darian could take a huge leap, and they could get him involved in the pass game more, and then he could see the field more. They're different backs, they're different guys, so it's not like Deuce Adams and Carter Smith, who are very similar, as are all the quarterbacks in that room now. These guys are two different type of players, and so I don't think they necessarily have to. I don't necessarily think there's a battle there. But if we're talking about number one running back, it's Abu Sama.
That's my sense coming into this before we see these guys, because that's why they went and got him. The physicality, the ability to hold up over time, the fact that he has 1,933 career rushing yards. And so I would be surprised if he doesn't end up the number one. But Dupree does have those 2 years at Wisconsin. I don't want to discount Jackson and Palmer. They have experience to a degree at the college level, and maybe one of them can leap up and take the number two. But if I'm pegging this odds going in, that's what I would say.
I would agree. All right, let's jump to another spot that there's just so many new bodies, and that would be wide receiver. And you can disagree with me or not, or I say you probably will. I think Chris Brooks is still one of the starting wide receivers.
I think he might be to open the season, and if somebody else emerges as a more consistent threat, possibly. But yeah, like the physicality that he provides, the blocking ability, I don't know how many other dudes can do that. And when you've got the system that Jeff Grimes has, that stuff really matters. And maybe he takes a leap as a pass catcher too. Like I think there's a ton of talent there. Remember the spring ball a couple of years ago before he got hurt in the first couple of practices, he was the guy making the plays. So if he's given some opportunities, I think he can take advantage. It's real hard to know because of the talent that they brought in and what could be. But I think I'm on board with that as spring starts.
What about Eugene Hilton Jr.? Is he the other guy?
Boy, I don't know if I'm ready to say that right now. Could it be Shamar Rigby? Could it be the Southeastern Louisiana kid? I feel like I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Is it Domingo?
Yeah.
Those would be the two that I'm really wondering about, because I think Tyrell Henry could be your top slot option. So I don't know if I think it's going to be Hilton from the get-go, but I think he's going to have every opportunity to earn that role.
Is there a chance the starting wide receivers are three guys that were here last year?
To open the season? Yeah, certainly. I think there's a chance. They do have the advantage of having been in the offense for a year, so you have that head start. I think the Oklahoma State and the Southeastern Louisiana ads are the two that I'm looking at thinking can potentially take those spots in Domingo and Rigby. I know I've said this before. Rigby caught 25 passes, didn't have any drops. So perhaps he can make a big leap. And then you have the unknowns, right? You've got Malachi Coleman from Minnesota.
Zion Kearney.
Right. Who is it? Oklahoma. And we're 4-star wide receivers out of high school, but don't have a lot of productivity. So I don't want to discount those guys. I think it's wide open.
What do you think about the move of Jackson McGowan to wide receiver? What does it mean, if anything?
It feels like it'll be a tough road to hoe. Obviously, he's got athleticism and length, and maybe, I don't know, of the tight end ads that they brought in over these last couple of years, he was the one that it felt like, not that there isn't physicality there, but think about, Grant Steck is like 265 and stacked, and he specializes in pancaking dudes. He felt like more of an athlete / pass catcher. So it makes some sense to me, but I don't know what kind of transition is required to go from what you're asked to do as a tight end to a wide receiver. Maybe he thrives in this role, but I think there's catching up to do with guys who have been playing wide receiver all their lives. Yeah,
and he's 6'3", 230, so you would expect him not to play at 230. I would imagine he is slimmed down a little bit. Maybe, perhaps, we'll see. But that's a tough one. Tight end, I think Grant Steck is your number one. And again, they have different tight end positions.
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
Well, yeah, I think you got Ryan Schwendeman and you got Jacob Harris from Bowling Green. Schwendeman, to me, fits more of the Steck mold in terms of blocking ability, but also can catch passes. There's a lot of experience there and a guy who's played. So I don't know if I'm automatically going to say going into spring ball that Steck is your number one, but absolutely he's in the mix there with that handful of guys to be the top tight end at that spot. I think there's competition.
I would agree. I was very intrigued by what we saw in spring and in fall with Emmett Bork and whether he can take a jump up. He has certainly receiving ability that we saw in, small things here and there. And then Jacob Harris, the way that some of the catches that he made are off the charts. But that's one of those spots where there's a ton of unknown because there's not a ton of proven stuff there in terms of at Wisconsin. Right?
Absolutely. I think just pure productivity of guys who've been at Wisconsin, not a lot. Steck caught 5 passes a year ago. We mentioned you've moved McGowan. I can see, we know Jeff Grimes wants to have multiple tight ends on the field, and maybe it's a situation where you just kind of rotate your top 3. Again, that's speculative since we haven't seen a single snap, but let's just say it's Schwendeman, Harris, and Steck, and you're rotating them in different ways. Can you sprinkle in an Emmett Bork? They added Sievers in this class, right? And they still have Zy Davis, but experience matters, I think. And I feel like Steck is ready to make that leap. But every year we talk about how many catches can a tight end have. Lance Mason showed what's possible in this offense a year ago. So there are opportunities for that group.
Yeah, that is a big loss for Wisconsin. Yeah. He was considering when he came and where he came from, he was fantastic. I don't know that you could have expected anything more from him when it comes down to it. That was best case scenario. That was best case scenario by far when you lose Tanner Koziel and he goes down to Houston and you don't have anybody to step in and then you go out and get him in the portal. It was a fantastic ad. That among the better portal ads that they've had, along with Mason Riger, I've probably put those two right up at the top in terms of what they got from them. And not necessarily expected, right? Mason injury wise and Lance coming from a lower level and late, you would never probably expected that. So the offensive line, you had a chance to talk to Eric Mateos. Did he go through where some of these guys are going to be?
Yeah. So I'll just give the not so shameless plug that the next Badger Bites, which is running Wednesday, tomorrow, as we're recording this, is going to be with Eric Mateos. I think it's going to be awesome because it's like, if you've ever wanted to learn anything about offensive line play, I feel like this is the video for you. We broke down the film of his lines at BYU and Baylor, where Jeff Grimes was the offensive coordinator, and then at his most recent stop, Arkansas. So it gives a fascinating window into what the offensive line and the offense in general could look like here at Wisconsin. But after we got done, I was just asking him a couple basic questions about where do you see these guys? Because we don't know, so many new players. So I think there's at least 4 tackles that he's going to be evaluating starting in spring ball. You have Kevin Haywood. You have the Lucas Simmons kid who played 81 snaps at Florida State. The one that I thought was interesting is he said he views P.J. Wilkins, who started the first 2 games at guard for Ole Miss last season before moving out of the starting lineup. He views him as a tackle. He felt like at Ole Miss, perhaps he was playing a bit out of position. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. I feel like I need to pull up the roster here. Barrett Nelson is another one. I think those are probably going into spring ball, the top 4 tackles that you're looking at.
Those were only 3 names.
Well, what'd I say? Wilkins, Haywood, Simmons, Barrett Nelson. 4.
I can't count.
That's okay. And then you've got young guys like, Michael Roski, guys who haven't played a ton, Nolan Davenport, but I think just based on experience, that's probably where the battle is at the tackle spots. Austin Koecki very clearly was brought in to be your top center. You still have Ryan Corey. I know there's a couple other guys they will evaluate, like Styles Blackman is an interior player who I think played some center, but it feels pretty wide open to me. Other than Emerson Mandel, makes a lot of sense at guard, given the experience that he had. I think that's going to be fascinating to watch unfold the offensive line competition in general at guards and tackles.
What do you think about the guard spot?
They certainly have a lot of options, right? You still have Colin Cubberly, who played a ton. Mentioned Blackman. This is like when you have to go and, Blake Cherry, who they brought in, who was at Arkansas a year ago, played all 12 games, mostly on special teams. And then you have some young players. I'll also say, so Logan Powell, they're looking at as a center, but you still have Hardy Watts, you still have Cam Clark. So I think there's a lot of competition opportunity.
A lot of options, and that's going to certainly play out during spring and then probably into fall camp before they get settled. But I don't remember there being like this much uncertainty where you can sit here and say Austin Kwiecki for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know that there's anyone else for sure. I mean, Haywood feels pretty set, but like other than that, I don't know that you're just and Emerson Mandel probably is going to get one of those spots.
Yeah.
But there's so many other bodies for the rest of these things. I don't know that there's a ton that we know. And again, we may see it in the first week of camp and be like, oh, all right, well, clearly this is the guy there. Or we're not going to see it where last year they were switching guys in by practice. Like the right guard spot was like rotating 3 different guys every single day, or every other day. And I don't know if that'll be the case this year or not, but there's the unknown there. And just because we haven't seen a lot of these guys actually at Wisconsin, I think is interesting.
Very much so.
So over to the defensive line, where there is a ton of new guys again. But that said, I have to imagine that we will see Charles Perkins involved in some way, and I would expect Dylan Johnson as well. And then it's the transfers, right?
Yeah, they got 4 defensive linemen as transfers. I think if you're, again, handicapping this going in, what does Wisconsin want to do with its defensive line? Last year was a perfect example. You get bigger, you get more physical, but you're able to rotate to stay fresh. This is something Luke Fickell has said from basically day one about his defensive line. You'd love to have 6. Sometimes they only have 5. But you have the 2 guys you just mentioned, Charles Perkins, Dylan Johnson. We've said before, Perkins played 73 snaps, Johnson played 71. I think these transfers can come in and start. I mean, Jake Anderson, for example, started 41 games, played all 17 games as a starter for a team that made the FCS national championship game. That's as much experience as you could possibly find. But Junior Poyser was a 13 All-MAC player at Buffalo. You have Hammond Russell, who's a veteran player, was at West Virginia. And then you have DeNigel Cooper, who played at Appalachian State a year ago. I think those could be your top 6. The question is, can a Xavier Akpanu or a Torrin Petaway make that leap to get into the mix? You have 2 true freshmen. It's pretty tough generally for defensive linemen or linemen in general as true freshmen to contribute. So I won't be surprised if that's your top 6 going in, and who can emerge at those spots. That's what spring ball's for.
Absolutely. There are certain places where they have to replace some very good players, right? Like I think, when you're talking about right tackle, I thought Riley Malman was a little bit underrated, but you got to replace him. You got to replace Lance Mason. You got to replace, your starting 3 corners. You got to get Austin Brown. But the one spot that jumps out at you and hits you in the face is edge, and having to replace Mason Reiger and what he was able to do. But that said, the bodies at those spots with a Sebastian Cheeks, with a Nick Clayton, with a Tyrese Fearbury, with some of the other ones that they brought in from the portal, there's going to be a ton of competition there. But considering what you lost to then to still have the other 3 guys coming back, have to like that.
Very much so. I really have no idea how that competition is going to shake out. You'd think Sebastian Cheeks would have an edge. He's got the most snaps played among the returning players. We saw Michael Garner a little bit, bigger body that they can have on the edge. Nick Clayton has tremendous upside. But you brought in 3 transfer portal players. I know we're going to talk about Liam Danitz, who I just wrote about on Monday. Justice Boone was at Arkansas. He's been in college for a long time. Jaden Lofton fits into the category of the 4-star high school player who doesn't have the college experience yet, but was very high in Wisconsin out of high school. And can you make that leap in your second year of college? There's a lot of talent there, but Mason Reiger and Daryl Peterson combining for, I believe it was 17.5 tackles for loss and 11.5 sacks, somewhere in that neighborhood, is an awful lot of productivity to try and replace.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy at all. Inside linebacker, it's a little bit We know what that is. We know that it's Cooper Catalano, Mason Posa, those top two. The other spot, though, where when they go three inside linebackers, you would think Thomas Heiberger would be one of those guys that's there, but also Kamara, the kid that they brought in from Kansas, athleticism off the charts. And I mean, that's another guy, one of those guys that you may circle and want to watch the first couple days of camp to see exactly what they look like. Because he was productive as a freshman last year at Kansas.
Obviously, it starts with Posa and Catalano, and you have to imagine they're going to get the vast majority of snaps based on the productivity they had last season. But you need more than that. I know that Wisconsin staff was very high on Thomas Heiberger when you're talking about retention coming out of the season. Yes, Christian Allegro was a big focus after you were able to secure Posa and Catalano, but they really wanted to try and keep Heiberger. He did start 3 games a year ago. I think another year in this system will serve him well. But you have Kamara. I think Taylor Schaefer is kind of a forgotten name here because they added him early on before the January window. He's from Wisconsin. He was playing at a junior college. He had huge numbers. Can he make that leap? We also haven't mentioned Aaron Witt, who is coming back for his 7th year, and Luke Fickell said will be in the linebacker room. I don't know what his role looks like. He's played a bunch. He's been around forever. Can he make an impact? Certainly don't want to forget about him, but it obviously starts with Posa and Catalano, and that's why I think that going into the spring, that's the position group you feel most confident about defensively.
Yeah, cornerback, so many new faces there, so many new bodies. Body that's not there anymore is Skanes, who is now at safety, so we'll get to him in a second. But I think there's Javon Robinson, who's going to be one of your guys. But I think the battles for both the slot, and they could go safety in the slot, we'll see. But the other cornerback spot, whether it's Eric Fletcher, Bryce West, some of the younger guys that they had last year, it's intriguing and exactly how these guys are going to show up and look. And I'm anxious to talk to Robert Siegel to see exactly how he views these guys and whether they're on the outside or whether he thinks more of them. There's a guy or two that could play in the slot.
Yeah, it's interesting because based on my conversations, all 4 of these transfer portal additions were brought in and viewed as corners on the outside. Maybe that changes. Bryce West played 90 snaps at Ohio State a year ago, so not a lot, but does have some experience in the slot. You bring in Robinson, much like you bring in Marvin Burks Jr., who we'll get to at safety, or some of these other guys. You have 1 year left. He started 26 games. Just plug him in as a starting corner. But those other 3 guys, I think, are going to battle it out. Eric Fletcher has more experience than the other 2. Fletcher played at Oklahoma State, but again, Bates and West were top 15 4-star corners in the same recruiting class a couple of years ago. There's a lot of talent, and those bodies ultimately, pushed Emilio Agard out the door, and Agard is now at Virginia. I think those are clearly your top 4. Can a Jameer Scotter or Jamari Washington break through in year 2? But you went and got these 4 corners for a reason. But yeah, it just feels totally open on who's the other outside guy and who emerges in the slot.
Safety, it's going to be Marvin Burks Jr. and Matthew Young. Is that an overreaction or no?
No, I think going in, it makes a ton of sense because Young played the 3rd most snaps defensively last season, which I think maybe gets forgotten a little bit given some of the stuff that Wisconsin was able to accomplish up front. And Burks, just like Robinson, has 26 starts. He played in the SEC at Missouri. Those 2 feel like your top 2. Matthew Trainor's dealing with the ACL injury, so I don't think you feel like you're going to have him or however long that recovery takes. But that's probably in part why you brought Skanes over. The names to watch to me are Grant Dean and Luke Emmerich because so much athleticism and talent. We saw it to a degree in camp. If they can emerge, you feel like that's a very talented safety room. And obviously they also still have Raphael Dunn, and they brought Carson Van Dinter over from Iowa State. So there are a lot of bodies there now all of a sudden, but I think you've got to start with Burks and Young as your top 2.
Yeah, and we'll see how the special teams plays out. I would expect Gavin Lom to be – I don't know that there will be a competition this year. We'll see. If he doesn't – I would assume him. And then certainly Sean West could be – both in the competition for punter and backup quarterback. So you've got him as well. All right, let's talk about Leo Danitz for a minute. Best transfer story per his coach. Is that true?
I mean, I think it's pretty damn good. Like Liam Danitz is a physical freak, which this is how it starts. So this is what happened. He was an All-American last year as a senior at Hope College, Division III school in Michigan. He is an All-American track athlete, and he was content in the knowledge that his football career was over. He was ready to move on. He'd already been accepted into University of Michigan to be like going to athletic training. He was preparing for his spring track season. And then he had a former teammate at Hope College who had made the leap to Western Michigan, was a defensive lineman, and said, hey, I have a coach who's interested in talking to you, but you need to enter the transfer portal first. And he was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know this was an option. And then he had these conversations, and he just said, essentially, what the heck? I'm going to enter the portal. The Division III rules are different from FBS because you get 4 years. He ran track as a freshman. He was on the football team. He did not appear in any games. When I talked to his coach, he said initially the stats had him playing in a game, and they went and looked, and it was a road game, and he didn't even travel with the team. So they were able to quickly correct that because there was some concern initially about trying to get a waiver. And I asked Luke Fickell about this because his coach at Hope was like, yeah, he's got to get a waiver. And Luke is like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're not in the waiver business anymore. And Liam said that his agent talked to a former compliance officer with the NCAA, and that's not an issue. So he had another year. Well, he enters the portal. He thinks he's going to hear from Western Michigan because he knows a coach is interested in him. He thinks he's going to hear from Grand Valley State and Ferris State. Those are other D2 schools in Michigan. He puts his phone away for a half hour. Word starts to spread about this All-American track stuff in the 100 and the 200. And he gets offers from some FBS schools. And then UCLA calls him and wants to fly him out to LA the next day. And it just exploded from there. I know Alan True at 24/7 Sports, who's in Michigan, wrote a story early about like, hey, this guy's got a really interesting portal story. He was an All-American in the 200, and he was an All-American in the indoor and the outdoor. He ran 100 and like 10.55. He's 6'4" or 6'5", 230 pounds. Those numbers are ridiculous. So people see that, and they go, holy crap. Everybody starts offering him. Well, he wanted to be in the Midwest. Wisconsin was kind of the first Midwestern school to offer him close to his home. The Matt Mitchell piece was super important. Matt Mitchell was the head coach at Grand Valley State for 13 years and is 20 miles from Hope College. And he had a longstanding relationship with Hope College's coach, Peter Stuursma. And basically, Danitz said, because Stuursma trusted Matt Mitchell, I trusted Matt Mitchell. And it lined up. And so in less than a week, basically, he went from my career's over, I'm going to go run track and then go be a master's student at Michigan, to I'm going to play another year of football, and it's going to be at Wisconsin, and I have a chance to do something really special. So pretty cool story.
So that 10.55, for context, Jonathan Taylor ran a 10.49 in high school. So, and that's a running back. And this guy's doing it at 6'5", what, 240, something like that?
Yeah, so he was 220. He came here at 227. When I talked to him, he'd been in the weight program for not very long. He'd already gained 5 pounds. So he said he was 232. The goal is to get him to like 240, 245. I think that can happen, because this is another part of the story. He's never had an offseason to train for football ever. This is what Luke talked about when we spoke with him last month. He's gone right into track. Well, what happens if a guy who's incredibly athletic and is already a good football player has a full offseason to train? You could turn into a monster. And I know that's what Wisconsin is hoping.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out for him. Is there any other part of that story that jumps out that you want to get across?
I think the other part that sold him is, we talked about Matt Young before, the D3 to Big Ten leap. There's not a lot of those stories, but Wisconsin was able to pull that off with Young. And yes, Young was the best DB in D3 a year ago or 2 years ago, had 6 pick sixes in his career. But Liam said that he talked to Matt when he was trying to make his decision, and that carried significant weight when he was evaluating these other schools, because it was down to UCLA, which he visited, Wisconsin, which he visited, and then he was scheduled to go visit Ole Miss. But all these factors line up, and one of the big ones was Matt Young came here, and he started, and he played a bunch of snaps. So there's a path at Wisconsin to go and do this as a D3 player.
Over under 3.5 sacks for Liam Danitz.
Hell, I'll take the over. I'll get on board early.
That's the way to go. That is the way to go. All right. As promised, our travel stories. Look at you. I got a picture of you with your
Lovely.
suitcase. Impressive.
How'd you get my actual suitcase? Have you been coming over to my house secretly?
I have been just looking in and seeing if I can't get some pictures, just because we don't have a lot of pictures out there of you. So I had to do, you know how it goes. But either way, travel stories for us, you have more than I do, because you seem to have the worst luck possible when you travel, which I guess, congratulations on that. Yeah. But tell me where you want to start. And I think you said you wanted to go chronologically, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, there's definitely some that I've forgotten over the years. It's hard to keep track of them. Some of them are like less maybe entertaining or extensive, but I've got a list here. So I do recall, I'm going to start in 2014. This is for basketball, covering the first Final Four run. They played, I believe, in California in the Sweet 16 and then the Elite Eight. That was when they beat Arizona. But I can remember getting there, and I had the opportunity to upgrade like for free to a Ford Mustang. And I was in a mode where I don't know where I am. I need a GPS. And the only car that they had in the lot with a GPS was a Toyota Yaris. And it was one of those old school GPSs where you had to punch in the buttons. It was attached to the car. And I think I put something out on Twitter at the time, like could have driven a Mustang and I'm in a Yaris. And Ben Bruss added me and was like, dude, you could have just used your phone for GPS. And I was just like not at a place where I even considered it. And now that's all I use. But I traded the opportunity for a Mustang for a Toyota Yaris. Just a rookie mistake. And that was year 4 on the beat.
Yeah. And what hotel were you staying in out there?
Oh, God, I can't remember, but I'm sure it was a Red Roof Inn. I should have gotten the Red Roof Inn points. I don't know that exists, but for the longest time, I stayed in the crappiest, cheapest motels. So it hardens you as a reporter, I think.
And that was by choice too. It's not like you. It's not like people were they. I mean, you didn't. You were booking your own stuff. I assume you had obviously a budget that you couldn't go over, but you chose to stay at Red Roof Inns. But again, what's the other opportunity? Would have been like Motel 6 or Motel 8?
Early on, I've been at some places where you really had to skimp. You had to save money however you could. And I've been at places that didn't send me. That was a long time ago. It's a different era, thank God. But there's been some Red Roof Inns of late that we'll get to.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So that was 2014. I'll go to 2013. Or no, was it 2014? I think it's 2014. Wisconsin played at Rutgers. And if you want to talk about the worst places to go in this conference,
yeah,
that is number 1 by far. We'll get to that in a second. But I was not booking my own travel at this point. I was working for ESPN Madison. I did not book my own stuff for ESPN Madison. Had somebody in Beaver Dam, which is where I started, but that's where like the home office was for the company at the time. And she would book, I would have to fly out of Chicago. It would be like hell away. It just the cheapest thing possible, essentially, is what she was doing every time. And so there was a hotel in New Jersey, and it was not near Rutgers. It was just outside of where you fly into, which is
Newark.
Yeah, right? Newark. Just outside of Newark. It's called a Quality Inn. And I walked in, and I've never seen anything less quality in a hotel than that. It was the biggest piece of place I've ever seen in my entire life. I walk in, there's kids running around, people yelling from down the stairs. And it just like it was a horrible hotel. I'm like, all right, well, the room's got to be okay. So I go up, second floor, walk in there. The toilet has shit in it. The bed is, I lay down on the bed. It's the hardest thing I've ever laid on. The walls were paper thin. I could hear arguments happening like on the other side. I lasted maybe 5 minutes in there, maybe. And I'm like, F this. I'm not staying here. So I went and picked up my stuff and went to like, I think the Plaza Hotel or something, like whatever's like right across the street from the airport. That was really nice. And I'm like, I don't care. It's not like I have a ton of money at this point. I don't care. I'm still paying for this myself. I am not staying. That was the biggest piece of ever. And also getting to the New York airport and the on-ramps and off-ramps to try and figure out how to get into the airport is the most confusing thing ever. I went around in circles for at least 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get my car both to the hotel and then back over to the airport. I mean, again, I get to book my own stuff now, and I can promise you, like, unless it's, and I'm not trying to be snotty here, but I'm not booking a quality in. I'll just say that ever. There was nothing quality about it.
This reminds me, I feel like the hardest place to drive for me on a road trip, LA, California, was like really the highway system. I don't understand the lanes. There's like extra lanes. And I know I much appreciate what the Beltline is in Madison, by the way. Like during rush hour, here's the green arrow. You can go in there. Doesn't matter if there's one person in the car or 12 people in the car. I know I got a ticket for something that I don't understand when Wisconsin played USC a couple years ago. But that's an aside.
Yeah, no, LA's different because I went and covered the NLCS out there in 2018, and getting to the stadium from the hotel took like an hour and a half. Getting from the stadium back to the hotel at like midnight, 12:30, took about 20 minutes. That sucks. That's the worst. I hate that. That's like my least favorite thing in the world. So yes, LA is not a fun place to drive, especially during any time that it's light out. Yes. But all right, your next one.
This is another minor one. I remember it because I was so pissed off. 2014 football game at Northwestern. I had to watch Joel Stave's comeback that led to 3 interceptions. That was at least a fascinating storyline. Not only did Wisconsin lose 20-14 at Northwestern, at which Ryan Field has always been essentially a glorified high school stadium. Glorified might be doing a lot of work there. I was staying at my in-laws in the suburbs, and right before I got home, a cop pulled me over because he said I blew through a stop sign. There's nothing worse than working like a 14-hour day and losing money. And I lost money that day, and I'll never forget it because sometimes when you're driving, and that wasn't even unfamiliar territory. I know we'll get to some unfamiliar territory driving stories, but like, man, when you get a ticket on the road and you have negative money because of that relative to the many hours that you work, it sucks. So that one sticks with me.
Rental cars are a bitch. Yeah. Rental car, like
that was my own car.
Brad, I'm saying, like, I'm just thinking back to some of the rental car. And you ever seen the Seinfeld episode where I put a reservation on?
Yes.
And then it's right, that one?
Now, I believe that is the Chinese restaurant one. I use this all the time to this day. So you can take the reservation. You just can't keep the reservation. I've experienced that many times with rental cars.
The exact thing that happened in Tampa. I want to say it was that 2015 where Alvarez was coaching. And I walked in. I got there late. It was like midnight, 12:30. And where you picked up the car was not at the airport. So I had to get a ride to wherever it was to pick it up. And I walk in and I'm like, I got a reservation for this. And like, sorry, we don't have the car. What do you mean you don't have my car? I put in a reservation. It's right here. Where's my car? Yeah, sorry, we don't have it. What am I supposed to do? And he's like, well, we'll have ones tomorrow. Tomorrow? How do I get from here to my hotel then? He goes, I would take a cab. So they could not. So I had to go back the next morning to get my rental car. But yes, they can take the reservation, just can't keep it.
Yeah.
That was Tampa.
Yeah. I got the 3 best stories here coming up. So thanks for bearing with us. Hopefully this is entertaining to a degree. It is February, by the way. This one is our intertwining travel story. It is one of the most ridiculous stories that we've had. 2017, heading to the Orange Bowl. We were flying out of Milwaukee. I believe we did the Milwaukee route because it was a direct flight to Miami.
Frontier, yeah.
Frontier. God love those people at Frontier. We were bursting down the runway, ready to take off. And right before we took off, they slammed on the brakes, which is genuinely scary when you have an expectation of going into the air and then not reaching that destination. And they did not have enough power in one of the engines, if I'm not mistaken. Well, we get off the plane, right? And we We might have gotten off the plane twice. I think we got off the plane twice. They first were working on something.
Yeah.
Then
The
that
bathroom.
happened.
It was like something was frozen.
Then we get off the plane again, and they have a system where they start auto rebooking you. So it's not up to you. They, if I'm not mistaken, right? They start rebooking. Well, Zach, lucky as he is, got one of the first flights out. I was rebooked on a flight that didn't leave until the next day. So we're in Madison area. So not only did I already have to have driven 90 minutes to get to Milwaukee, I had to drive back to come back the following day. And that flight got delayed. What ended up happening is the reason we go on certain dates is because there is media availability. Well, Jim Leonard was scheduled to talk the next day, and I missed his entire spiel in which he basically gave a season preview of next year for his defense, position by position, everything that he was looking for, all the information you'd want to have from somebody that you don't have an opportunity to speak with very often. That sucked.
It was amazing.
Then on the way back, you and I took like a red eye. They're on no sleep because it was a night game and it ends at 2 a.m. or whatever it is. I slept 19 hours when I got home. So all in all, that was a terrible flying situation to the Orange Bowl.
So we did take a very, I don't think it was a red eye. We took it was like a 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
Yeah, maybe in the morning. Like
that, yeah, it was that. And we got to Chicago, and you were on a different flight, I think, to Madison or to Milwaukee. Maybe you went to, I don't know, wherever you were going. My flight from Chicago got canceled, and they wanted to put me on a bus back to Madison, or back to Milwaukee, I should say, because that's where my car was. And I had a horrible trip coming back. Like I was sick. I was not feeling it whatsoever. I think I was in the bathroom puking when we landed. And when I got off the plane and saw that my flight was canceled, I'm like, nope, I'm not getting on that bus. I'm not waiting for another plane. I rented a car and just drove to the Milwaukee airport. I'm like, this is just not, I can't do this. I just do not want to get back on a flight. That was also the last time I thrown up on a flight was that 2018. Yeah. Right. I figured out if you hydrate, heavily hydrate, you're fine. You just have to pee a lot. That's the only problem. You're still going to the bathroom, but you don't have to have the puke bag in your hand the entire time.
Mm-hmm. This next one is one of my favorites because it was so ridiculous. So we take you to the following year, 2018 at Penn State. You want to talk about worst places in the Big Ten to try and get to? State College might be at the top. Piscataway generally, and I apologize to the people who reside in Piscataway and are listening to this, but as a reporter trying to cover it, going to Piscataway sucks. You fly into Newark, then you drive all this way to Piscataway. But State College is $9 million to try and stay at a hotel there. So somehow I found a flight into State College, but had a hotel in Altoona, which is like 45 minutes plus away. So I'm driving in the morning of the game. This is Jack Cohn's first road start, by the way. I think third career start. So Wisconsin played terribly on offense, lost this game 22-10. There's like one way in from Altoona on this highway, and the roads are frozen or something. There was some terrible storm that happened, and nobody is moving. And the game is fast approaching. I'm in my rental car. I've never done this before, never done it since. I basically was like, fuck this. I can't sit here. I'm going to miss the entire game. I turned around on the shoulder. I'm driving backwards on the highway, the other direction. And I found an opening to get on to go the other direction on the highway to take a back road, which also was buggered up because everyone's trying to get to the same place. And I think I got there. I left 4.5 hours before kickoff. I got there 15 minutes before kickoff. If you've ever been to State College on a game day, just trying to find a parking spot is a huge pain, even when you've got a spot in the stadium lot. So that was just a terrible experience, a 4-hour drive for something that should have not taken that long while illegally driving in the wrong direction on the shoulder of the highway. Thankfully, there were no police officers. That would have been a tough one to explain.
Same trip. I went to Harrisburg and then was going to fly, in the drive, stay in Harrisburg. It was hilarious, actually. We got out to the rental car, and I typed in the hotel, and it's like, you're here. And And I looked around and like, damn, that is the Fairfield right there. Shit, my bad. Same thing happened at Washington State. But we'll get to that because I think
that's on the list.
Yeah. But Harrisburg, so yeah, it's an hour and a half away from where I was staying, and get the car, start driving, probably an hour into it, looking around for my parking pass, nowhere to be seen. Look around for my credential, nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found. And I'm getting closer. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? You can't get past certain places without the parking pass, so you have no place to park. You can't get into the stadium, obviously, without the credential. So I had to call UW people, and they're like, yeah, we can get you a credential, but I can't help you with the parking. And so I had to park like, I don't know, 3 miles away. And then I took an Uber, and the Uber guy, thankfully, had some kind of a parking pass that let him get right to where I needed to be. And he dropped me right outside the stadium. It was perfect. But I got back to my hotel, and the packet with both my credential and my parking pass are just laying right on the bed. I think the housekeeping people had found it and just put it like right on my pillow. It's like one of those mints that you leave on your pillow. That's exactly where they left that. I was like, that's going to do me a ton of good.
Yeah. I'd say Penn State has the oldest, least functional press box ever.
They have replaced it. It's new.
Okay.
But it was, when you talk about bad press boxes, Wisconsin was up there. They've replaced theirs, and it's much, much better now. But Penn State's was worse than Wisconsin. It was like an old rickety wooden thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shocked that it was still standing when we got there.
Mm-hmm. Good food there. I know we'll get to that too. I think the worst place to interview, was it Northwestern that would be in a broom closet? Is that
Illinois and Northwestern are both bad.
Yeah.
Illinois was under the stadium in a broom closet. Yes, that was, and I assume still is.
Yeah. Also, if anybody is ever listening, and I don't know how many sports writers there are out there, but like if you've ever covered high school sports and been in a spot where you were locked inside a stadium and had to climb out, this actually happened at Purdue's Ross-Ade Stadium after filing late. A few of us had to actually climb a fence to get out. So there are some perils of covering sports, especially these night games when everybody else is gone and you're the last person there. So
yeah, that was the 2023 game, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
I don't think they played it. I don't think they played at night since then.
Yeah.
Down there at least.
Yeah. One more good one. This might be an all-timer, but okay, the Las Vegas Bowl 2021. I got stuck in Detroit, and there were somehow no more flights out that evening. So I had to spend the night there at it was probably one of those hotels that was amazing for families to go to in 1984. Like, there's a pool in the middle. It's an indoor deal, and the middle has these fountains and a pool. But it was December 30th or whatever it was. So it's freezing cold in Detroit. I've missed my flight to Vegas. The next day, somehow I flew in the opposite direction in the country from Detroit to like Atlanta, only to take a flight back to Las Vegas. This was a real learning experience to me. And for people listening, you probably know this. I didn't accumulate this knowledge. They don't teach it in school, I guess. You got to call the hotel to let them know if you're not going to arrive that night in time. I did not do that. So I finally arrived around midnight the following day. And when I get there to check in at the media hotel, they had already given my room away because I was a no-show. And it's like, I think it was 1 a.m. And where am I going to go? Fortunately, it's Las Vegas, so there's a lot of hotel opportunities. The closest hotel was across the street at a Red Roof Inn, right next to a strip club. There were only a handful of chalk outlines. I joke about that, but I went from this super nice hotel in Vegas with all the slot machines. Not that I would have played them. Don't have the money to lose, but in general, it's the media hotel. The media hotel is supposed to be sort of a nice place to stay. Yeah, thank you. And to a Red Roof Inn, next to the strip club, and showing up like, I don't know what it was, 42 hours later than I was supposed to show up. So note to self, and a good lesson: if you're not going to make it by midnight, call the hotel. Let them know your room.
Absolutely. That is a good one. It also is a nice collapsing on it because of the Red Roof Inn. It's kind of a nice tied it all together.
Full circle moment, which reminds me, I think I stayed at a Red Roof Inn in Tampa, going back to that first that Outback Bowl when Melvin Gordon went wild, and probably one of the most entertaining bowl games we've seen. I know we've talked about that. I ended up at Tampa, if I'm not mistaken, is the strip club capital of the world. It is in the U.S. I'm pretty sure. There were 3 strip clubs either across the street or next to me. So I'm glad I made it out of the hotel, because you never know what's going to happen when you're in that type of environment. And no, I did not go to the strip clubs.
You didn't? I thought we did. No, not that year. No, no. I'm kidding. We've never been. The media trips or the media outings usually land us in Top Golf or bowling or the entertainment room or the hospitality room, which was amazing. That Outback Bowl and whatever they're calling it now. What do they call it now? The hell was that bowl? I have the thing.
ReliaQuest Bowl? ReliaQuest.
The ReliaQuest Bowl was amazing. The media hotel there, you walk downstairs and it's just the hospitality room's filled with huge TV, a bunch of TVs, a bunch of couches, a whole bunch of booze, a whole bunch of food, and you can just sit there and do whatever you can just sit there all afternoon, every day after you got done with your work, and just watch football and eat and drink. And I think a lot of us did that. I don't know that any of us, and I don't think I'm putting him on blast here, I don't think any of us did it more than Colton Bartholomew, but Evan was in there, Evan Flood was in there a bunch too. I think we took advantage. Some of us took advantage of the free booze in there as much as possible.
Not me. I've learned my lesson over the years. We can keep some of those stories on the down low, but I always say bowl games are rewards for beat writers too. It's a long freaking season, and if you get to go to a warm weather destination, you should take advantage of it in between your work, obviously. Yeah,
I think certainly taking advantage of it in Las Vegas, in Los Angeles, in Phoenix. I think all those I think you took advantage of. I think we all took advantage of all those opportunities at those particular places. Washington State.
Yeah, that's my last story on the list here.
Yeah, so I've taken. I don't know that I'm known for it by any stretch, but perhaps I am. I don't like if there's a game and I have to get up early next morning to get on a plane, fly home. I'll only book one night, so I'll fly in on a Friday, I'll do the hotel, and then get up and just do something, go to the game, cover the game, and then just go back to wherever I have to be and just stay there until I can go to the airport. I just don't sleep well. It just doesn't happen for me. But I've also become probably known for jumping rides with people to avoid having to get a rental car. So sometimes it'll be the State Journal guys. Lately, when I've gone, it's been you, and we drove together from where'd we stay? Where was that?
Spokane to Pullman, 75 miles of beautiful country.
Yes, and the trip there went perfectly fine for us. The way home was a little bit different.
Yeah, again, nothing. I don't want to say like we've got great jobs, but the hours sometimes are less than ideal. So it's 2 a.m. Wisconsin went out there. It's the first loss of the Luke Fickell era. Washington State fans are going crazy. You write your story. It's God knows what it is. 2 a.m. It's pitch black out there. You can't see anything. You're on a campus you've never been to and probably will never go back to. Well, I'm driving the rental car. We are not more than half a mile outside the parking lot, and I get pulled over by a cop for speeding through a stop sign or through a speeding limit that I have no idea what it is. And it's funny because the State Journal guys passed us and saw me being pulled over. Fortunately, they did not give me a ticket. But there's just like nothing worse than I don't know where I am. I can't tell you how many times I've turned in the wrong direction and like been completely lost, because how are you supposed to know where you are? So you and I got pulled over 30 seconds after getting the car in the middle of the night, and then had like an hour and a half drive to in the middle of nowhere in Washington State.
The thing is, you in that moment you weren't really speeding, but you did speed the rest of the way home. I was like, dude,
easy.
I was like, dude, just chill. Like we're fine. You're just asking. Like you didn't they say that there was another cop up ahead or something like that? I thought they told us there was another cop like sitting somewhere. I'm like, just we don't 5 over, 10 over. Okay, sure, that's fine. I'm a speeder. Like how many times have we gone to Platteville? And I think we're just keeping pace with each other a few miles over the speed limit going to Platteville, because just that drive for 2 straight weeks, not ideal. My final story would be the one in the 2020 Rose Bowl. So again, this is a very Zach thing. My flight out left at I was supposed to get into there until midnight or 12:30. And I'm like, do I really need to get a hotel for that night? I don't think I do. I'll just go right to the media hotel and just wait, because interviews were bright and early the next morning. I'm like, it's fine. I'll be all right. I got there early, and I'm like, I really should have gotten a hotel. Shit. So I get an Uber I wasn't staying at the media hotel, I was staying at a different hotel. I got an Uber to another hotel and got there, and I'm like, I have a room the next 5 nights here, or 4 nights, whatever it was. Is there any chance I can book a room for tonight? He goes, we don't have anything available. Sorry. I'm like, yeah, any suggestions? He goes, nope. It's late. And I'm like, okay. So then I started looking online, and no one would take walk-ins. No one would take anything that was that late. Again, it was downtown, it was by the Staples Center, it was down in that area. And I'm like, this is insane. This is ridiculous. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go to the media hotel and just chill in the lobby until the next morning. And I get to the media hotel, and it's locked. The doors are locked. And I knocked, and I'm like, is it okay if I'm a media member. I'm going to be here for the thing tomorrow morning. Can I just stay in the lobby? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And he goes, I don't know. I don't really care. You just can't come in here. Now I'm like, shit, what am I? I'm like, there's people there. I mean, it was a little bit of a shady. There was a little bit of a shady area. And I'm like, all right, well, what's open 24 hours that I can just go sit in? So I go back out, and I'm sitting right outside the hotel, and a homeless guy walks up and sits down right next to me and starts talking to me, gibberish that I had no idea what was going on. And I'm like, yep, sure, And I got my bags with me too. And I'm like, And I just got up and walked away. And I'm like, I think I saw Denny's. So I go to Denny's, and I sit down, and I had something to eat. Meanwhile, and this is at 1:30, 2 o'clock. The media thing didn't open until 7. I had to waste 5 hours in a Denny's. And you should see the people that come into a Denny's over 5 hours period of time. There was a fight in that Denny's. There was a guy that got kicked out because he was sleeping in that Denny's. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting here with my pancakes trying to eat them very, very slowly so that I don't have to get up and leave, because you can't really just loiter. So I think I ordered 3 different meals over that 5 hours, that 6 hours, just to be able to stay in there. It was the worst thing ever. And I ended up having to not sleep that night, and then go and do all interviews that night or that day, and work the entire day. And the media party was that night. And I'm like, I can't do it. I need to sleep. And I ended up getting multiple calls from you and Evan late that night after you guys had gone bowling. And then we're heading back to the hotel for more things. And I was like, that's the only moment I've ever regretted from that trip. And just in most of my trips, just not going to that, because my understanding was an epic party that involved.
You just need sleep.
Yep. So the Rose Bowl, a great place to go, but make sure to book a hotel, even if you don't think you need one. I will not make that mistake again.
What a way to close out the travel stories.
Boom. There are plenty others that we can't tell, but the ones we told, pretty good. We've had a lot of experiences. All right. That'll do it for today's show. We'll be back next week as we get closer and closer to spring ball opening up, and can't wait to see where this team stands when that first day comes. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach. Talk soon.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. Go check him out. You've been listening to The Camp.